In this video, we're going to take a look at the last of the Vauxhall Viva line, the HC. Hub nut, sponsored by Lancaster. So yeah, the last of the Vauxhall Vivas. This is the last entire car designed by Vauxhall. It really was getting on towards the end. The FE Victor was a joint Vauxhall Opel design, so this is the last one that was 100% Vauxhall. The engine, the body styling, absolutely all of it is Vauxhall's work. And the Viva was the baby of the Vauxhall range. Launched in 63, I think, the HA Viva, which oddly continued in van form until the early 80s. The HB was quite different in terms of suspension. We've got independent by coil springs and wishbones at the front, and the rear axle, live axle on coil springs at the back. So very similar on the HC, which was the evolution. And to be honest, that's one of my issues with the HC Viva, is that it just didn't move the game on at all when it came out in 1970. And while in some ways it was ahead of some of the competition, you know, coil springs weren't fitted to every car, it just didn't seem to move the game on all that much. But you know, let's have a look around. We've got cheeky styling. I think Wayne Cherry, an American, was involved in the styling of the Viva. It's certainly got a bit of Americana about it, especially with the optional vinyl roof. This is Jamaica Yellow, by the way, so a lovely bright colour. The rear styling is very, very unique to these cars, and again very clearly inspired by America. And there's some funky retro touches, but I can't say it's one of my favourites. I far prefer the HB Viva. I should have perhaps driven that one instead. I mean, I will say there are extra points for raised digit number plates. Gorgeous, and they look like the originals as well. Look, we've got the original dealer sticker in the back as well. With only 16,000 miles on the clock, this really is a minty fresh example. So I think we should probably have a look inside. First of all, what do the doors sound like? Yeah, that's a nice solid sound, not too tinny. Gorgeous contrasting beige interior. I apologise for the hard shadows. It's a bit tricky to avoid on such a beautiful day. But I even like the seat belts. Yeah, even jolly seat belts. We've got a stubby little gear lever sticking up because the gearbox is directly under there. And energy absorbing. I think that's a reference to the collapsible steering column rather than the steering wheel itself. I don't think that's going to absorb a fat lot, to be honest, but let me just jump aboard. See, we've got a lovely radio again, heater, we've got a little ashtray, glove box, oh, complete with the original owner's manual. Oh wow, that's quite pleasant. Winding windows, of course. You're not going to get toys on this car, and a lot of body coloured paint as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I find that quite characterful. So there's the dashboard itself. We've got a light switch up here. That's not entirely ergonomic. We've got wipers on this stalk. We shall investigate wipers later. Indicators over here, along with a horn. Oh, that's a good horn. And nice brown dashboard, fresh air ventilation to the face. We've got a bank of warning lights there. See if we can get any of them to illuminate. There you go. Indicator. Oh, there's the indicator. Oh, that's a cracking indicator noise. You don't get that on most road tests, do you? But yeah, oh, we've got the hazard lights, weirdly, down here on the side of the stalk, with our own little relay by the sound of it, so a slightly different speed. Manual choke, cigarette lighter, thus ends the specification. But of course, law dictates we must have seatbelts, so seatbelts we have in the front. They're not legally required in the back in 1979. And 79 was the last year of Viva production, so this is one of the last. Okay, here's a mild annoyance. This is a British car, a British designed car. Why is the bonnet called a hood, and why is the opening point for it on the passenger side? Surely that's unforgivable. Well, here we are. with the little 1256cc engine, 4-cylinder overhead valve, very simple but quite robust. I think a Stromberg carburetor on this example, air filter next to it there. We've got a brake servo, all mod cons, and that's about it. I mean, there's enough space to have a party in here. And look how easy it is to change a headlamp bulb, because the headlamps are just there. Oh, owners of modern cars will weep. But yeah, nice and easy to work on, nice and simple. There we go. Then we shall start the engine. The clutch is surprisingly heavy and also remarkably sharp. So it'll be good for quick getaways if I can avoid stalling it. There we go. Oh, me mirror's wonky, that just won't do. There we go. That looks much better. We have freedom to explore in the HC Viva with its sharp clutch. Bit of driveline shunt going on there as well. Just been let out by a Vauxhall Adam. Not an Adam. Oh no, I got the choke in too quick, I think. There we go. Oh no, she's not happy. We'll let her warm up a bit first. She's not giving her best yet. Not quite as happy to come off the choke as I was hoping for. So the problem with the Viva really was it was getting a bit old hat by the early 70s. This version launched in 1970. By the time they got around to replacing it in 1979, it was very old hat indeed. And of course, it was replaced effectively by the Vauxhall Astra, which was an entirely Opel design. But certainly tidy enough in the handling department. Oh, there's a plane landing on us. But certainly it feels a bit archaic. I mean, I know the world changed around 79, 80 because you got the Mark 1 Astra, you got the Mark 3 Escort. So the world really did change a lot, front wheel drive becoming king. But this feels like a 1960s car, because it is, effectively. It just doesn't feel as up to date as you might hope. Oh no, I'm holding the clutch pedal down. I'll get howls of derision again. Yeah, that clutch is sharp. Oh, come on, wake yourself up. This car is not happy. It should be pulling much more cleanly than that. It's a nice snick little gearbox because there's no remote linkage. That's directly into the top of the gearbox. The downside is it's got very tight for space down here because the gearbox intrudes into the footwell rather, which is why the pedals have had to be canted over so much. See if I can actually get the choke in now. I think she's starting to come good. It's certainly a very placid, easy car to drive. The controls are nice and light. The clutch is, yeah, I don't like the clutch, but everything else is nice. But a bit undergeared, you could say. Sounds like it's revving quite a lot here at 50. So what's it going to be like on the motorway? Oh, still not pulling cleanly. I shouldn't need that much clutch when the engine's at operating temperature. Oh, a bit of axle noise going on as well. Nice mirrors though, they do work well. Let's do the window up. So we're now doing 60 and that's starting to sound like hard work. I mean, my foot is not down particularly hard, it's just that there aren't enough, yeah, the gearing, you're crying out for a fifth gear here. Yeah, rear axle doesn't sound the best. Let's hope that doesn't seize on us, because that would be exciting. In this museum piece, almost 17,000 mile Viva. Big problem with a Viva though is I once drove this car back to back with a Chevette. They have a 6,000 mile Chevette in the collection, and the Chevette felt much nicer, even though it's got exactly the same engine. The Chevette used the Opel Kadett underpinnings, which had a torque tube, and it just all felt a bit tighter, a bit more precise, somehow less aged. Whereas this feels like a surprisingly old car. I mean, there were more exciting versions. You could get Forenzas and all sorts with bigger overhead cam engines, the old Slant 4. Still not pulling cleanly. Brief burst of 70 there, but I'm having to use the choke to get it to run cleanly, so that's not ideal. I wonder if something's amiss in the carburettor. It could be a while since this car was last out. That is one of the issues. Although Andy and Terry at the Vauxhall Heritage Collection do sterling work trying to keep all these cars in absolutely tip-top, ready-to-go condition, which, given how sizable the collection is, I mean, that's not an easy task. The gear lever's just a bit too far away, really. You could have been canting the lever back a bit, maybe. Ergonomics, not quite what they are nowadays. Again, very tractable. You can potter along at no revs. We're in third gear doing 15 miles an hour. But it's not a particularly appealing engine noise, is it? You can hear a fair amount of valve chatter going on. Being an overhead valve engine, obviously you've got valve clearances. But, you know, all overhead valves tend to have a bit of chat going on. Certainly my Skoda Favorit did. Oh, perhaps she's starting to get into a stride again now. Yeah, the ride is a bit bouncy. It's not the most composed. But it's better than it would be with simple leaf springs, I guess, so one can't complain entirely. Of course, one of this car's rivals was the Morris Marina, effectively, smaller 1.3 litre engines, or of course the Allegro, and I'm not sure I can say this is better than an Allegro. I wouldn't be as insulting to describe it as worse, but I don't like the driving position too much. I think you sit a bit too low in this. You sit up a bit more in the Allegro, and I tend to prefer that. I guess this feels more sporty, but you don't buy a small car because you want sporty, do you? That's just not what you do. Right, should we do some wiper action? Is that wash? There's the wash. There might not be much washer fluid, so that might be a lot. The axle's still chomping away a bit. I just need to find a better speed. It's quite quiet at 47 miles an hour. I don't normally steer like that, but the wheel does lend itself rather to that. Institute of Advanced Motorist folk might want to look away now. But, yeah, bouncy, bouncy. Hey! Yeah, it is definitely on the bouncy side. I mean, it could well be on its original dampers, which would be quite old now. This is a 40-year-old car. And again, it's a demonstration, but you can drive around in a 40-year-old car, absolutely no bother at all. You might not want to cover much in the way of motorway miles in a car like this, but the cars themselves are more than capable. Oh, it's a lovely indicator noise. I far prefer that to the horrible fake click you get in so many modern cars. It's just not nice at all. Ding dong, ding dong. Now, is this starting to pull better? Yeah, I think she's running far too lean. I can hear a bit of pinking going on. If I richen up the mixture, she picks up a bit. Again, one of the issues with cars that do very little miles, things dry out, carburetor diaphragms and things like that, and yeah, rear axles don't necessarily like just sitting around either. Oh, this isn't the road I thought it was. This one has a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on it. So I can't say the HC Viva is one of my favourites, which means that once again, I've proved that there are cars I don't like, and it isn't that this is terrible, because it isn't, but it just doesn't grab me. There's nothing there's nothing interesting about it. An Allegro, you've got the hydrogas suspension, you've got the reputation, you've got the quirky styling, and I like all of that. I mean, certainly there's a lot of nostalgia here, and nostalgia is a major reason for liking any older car. But for me, it just doesn't do enough. I just find the Chevette is a better drive. This is definitely a case of too little and far too late. Let's open her up a bit. Oh, spoil sports are putting a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit here. Just when you want to be using your momentum to get up the hill. Oh, I thought that might be a bit quick. Not in a Citroen. So there you go. That was the HC Viva. It's not a Ford, and it's not one of my favourite cars. It's odd how the world pans out sometimes. Yeah, not running her best, sadly, but yeah, I'm not sure she's got an awful lot more to give, to be honest. It is only a 1256cc engine. Before I move on, I must say, you can see these three cars and everything that hides in this building. An open day. Luton Festival of Transport happens every year. Make a note, 9th of June for your diary. It's a Sunday. They will have an open day here. So as part of that, you can go and enjoy the Luton Transport Festival, and you can come to the Heritage Centre and see the goodies that lurk within. And believe me, there are some very, very tasty motor vehicles in there. But yes, that was the HC Viva. It's time for lunch. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in a future video. Farewell.